The crystal towers of the Crithani homeworld stretched toward the purple sky like giant fingers reaching for the stars. Inside the largest tower, Queen Veshikara sat on her throne, her insect-like body gleaming under the soft lights. Her forearms rested on the armrests while her compound eyes stared at the royal advisor who had just spoken. "Say that again," the queen said, her voice trembling. The advisor bowed low. "Your daughter, Princess Zelanix, has returned. She is alive." The entire throne room fell silent. Every Crithani present stopped moving. Some of the nobles made clicking sounds with their mandibles, a sign of extreme shock in their culture. The queen's personal guards gripped their weapons tighter, unsure what this news meant. 5 years. It had been 5 years since the pirates attacked her daughter's ship. 5 years since the wreckage was found floating in space with no survivors. 5 years of mourning and empty ceremonies. "Where is she?" the queen asked, standing up from her throne. Her tall body cast a long shadow across the polished floor. "She is landing now, my queen." In the palace courtyard, Queen Veshkara moved faster than anyone had seen her move in years. She walked quickly through the corridors, her guards struggling to keep up. Behind her, the entire royal court followed like a wave of clicking, chittering bodies. Everyone wanted to see if this miracle was real. When they reached the courtyard, a small ship was descending. It was not a Crithani vessel. The design was crude, with uneven panels and visible repair marks all over its hull. The queen recognized it immediately as human construction. Her mandibles clicked in confusion. What were humans doing bringing her daughter home? The ship landed with a heavy thud, sending dust into the air. The engines shut down with a wheezing sound that suggested they barely worked anymore. For a long moment, nothing happened. The courtyard was completely silent except for the wind moving through the crystal towers. Then the door opened. Princess Zelanix stepped out into the light. She looked different from how the queen remembered. Her carapace had scars that had healed poorly. Her movements were more careful, more guarded. She wore simple clothing instead of royal garments, but it was definitely her daughter. The queen would know her child anywhere in the universe, but Zelanix was not alone. Behind her, a human male stepped out of the ship. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and eyes that immediately began scanning the courtyard like a predator checking for danger. His uniform was old and faded, marked with the symbols of the Earth Colonial Defense Force. Scars covered his visible skin, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had survived many fights. The Crithani court erupted in shocked sounds. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a young species. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Most advanced species considered them primitive, though their military forces had earned grudging respect for their stubbornness in battle. But no human had ever stood in the royal courtyard before. No human had ever been this close to the Crithani throne. The human's hand stayed near a weapon on his belt. His eyes never stopped moving, watching every Crithani noble, every guard, every shadow. The queen realized this human expected an attack at any moment. "Mother," Zelanix said, walking forward. She moved slowly, respectfully, but also protectively. She positioned herself slightly in front of the human, as if shielding him from potential harm. Queen Veshikara felt her heart's beating in multiple rhythms, a sign of emotional distress in her species. "My daughter, you are alive. How is this possible?" "This is Lieutenant Jake Morrison," Zelanix said, gesturing to the human. "He saved my life after the pirate attack. He has protected me for 5 years while we searched for a way home." Jake Morrison. The queen studied the human carefully. He did not bow. He did not show fear. He simply stood there, alert and ready, one hand near his weapon. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes missed nothing. "A human?" one of the nobles said loudly. "The princess returns with a human? How do we know he did not kidnap her?" Another noble called out. "Perhaps this is a human trick," said a third voice. "They want something from us." The accusations flew through the courtyard like weapons. Jake Morrison's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He simply shifted his weight slightly, preparing for whatever might come next. The queen noticed that despite being surrounded by hundreds of Crithani, any one of whom could kill a human easily, this Jake Morrison showed no panic. "Only readiness, silence," the queen commanded. The courtyard fell quiet immediately. She looked at her daughter. "Explain everything." Zelanix straightened her posture. 5 years ago, my diplomatic ship was attacked by pirates. My entire crew was killed. I survived in an emergency pod. Lieutenant Morrison's survey ship found me. They rescued me. But before we could contact Krithani space, the pirates attacked again. Morrison and I escaped in a shuttle, but his ship was destroyed. We crashed on a frontier world called Redstone. And this human kept you alive for 5 years? The Queen asked. Why would he do that? What did he want in return? He wanted nothing, Mother, Zelanik said firmly. He simply helped because I needed help. That is what humans do. The Chancellor, an old Krithani named Kexavol, stepped forward. His body was ancient and scarred from many battles. My Queen, this story is suspicious. Why would a primitive species keep our princess alive for 5 years? They could have ransomed her. They could have used her for political gain. They could have sold her to our enemies. Jake Morrison finally spoke. His voice was rough, like someone who had not used it much recently. We tried to contact your space for 3 years. Every transmission we sent was blocked or intercepted. The pirates were hunting for the princess. If we had revealed her location, they would have killed her and everyone near her. His accent was strange to Krithani ears, his pronunciation of their language imperfect, but understandable. The fact that he had learned their language at all surprised many of the nobles. Humans were not known for learning alien languages easily. You speak our language, the Queen observed. The princess taught me, Jake said simply. Seemed useful. And now you bring her home, Kexval said, his tone suggesting disbelief. After 5 years, you simply return her and ask for nothing? I brought her home because she wanted to come home, Jake said. His eyes met the Chancellor's without fear. That's all. The simplicity of his answer seemed to anger some of the nobles. They clicked and chittered among themselves. The Queen could hear fragments of their conversations. They did not trust this human. They thought he had plans. They wondered if he had harmed the princess and was now pretending to be her savior. Queen Veshkara looked at her daughter. Did this human harm you in any way? He saved my life more times than I can count, Zelanik said. Her voice was firm and clear. He taught me to survive on a world that would have killed me in days without his help. He fought off pirates 3 times to keep me safe. He rebuilt a broken communicator piece by piece for 2 years until it worked. He never asked for anything. He never tried to ransom me. He simply protected me because it was the right thing to do. The Queen heard something in her daughter's voice. Something beyond gratitude. Something deeper. She looked at how Zelanik stood near the human, how she positioned herself between him and potential threats. She saw how the human's eyes constantly checked on the princess, making sure she was safe even while surrounded by her own people. My Queen, Kexavol said carefully, perhaps we should separate them until we can verify this story. The princess has been through a traumatic experience. She may not be thinking clearly. I am thinking very clearly, Chancellor, Zelanik said coldly, clearer than I ever have before. Nevertheless, Kexval continued, protocol demands investigation. We must ensure the princess was not influenced or manipulated. The Queen considered this. Protocol did demand investigation, but protocol had never dealt with a situation like this before. A human had never stood in the royal courtyard. A princess had never returned from the dead after 5 years. Very well, the Queen said slowly. Princess Zelanik, you will be given rooms in the royal quarters. Lieutenant Morrison, you will be housed in the diplomatic wing under guard. You will both be questioned separately to verify your story. Jake Morrison's hand moved slightly toward his weapon, then stopped. He looked at Zelanik. Some unspoken communication passed between them. The princess nodded slightly. I want assurances that Lieutenant Morrison will not be harmed, Zelanik said. He is under my personal protection. He has earned diplomatic immunity through his service to the royal family. That is not a decision you can make, Kexval said quickly. It is a decision I can recommend, Zelanik countered, and one I expect to be honored. The Queen raised one hand for silence. Lieutenant Morrison will not be harmed while he is our guest. You have my word. But he will be guarded and he will be questioned. This is not negotiable. Jake Morrison looked at the Queen for a long moment. Then he nodded once, accepting the terms. Understood. The Queen gestured to her guards. Take them to their quarters. Treat them with respect, but watch them carefully. As the guards moved forward, Zelanik walked close to Jake Morrison. She spoke quietly in a human language the Queen did not understand. Jake responded in the same language. Then they separated, each being. Jake Morrison sat in the diplomatic quarters alone. The room was large and decorated with crystals that glowed softly in the dim light. The furniture was designed for Chthoni bodies, which meant it was uncomfortable for a human. He did not care. He had slept in worse places. He stood by the window, looking out at the alien city below. Crystal towers rose everywhere, catching the light from the purple sky. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like silver insects. It was beautiful in a strange way, but Jake felt no comfort here. He was a prisoner even if they called him a guest. The door opened without warning. 2 Chthoni guards entered, followed by an older Chthoni in official robes. This one moved slowly, deliberately. Jake recognized authority when he saw it. "Lieutenant Morrison," the official said. "I am Investigator Kelvan. I am here to learn the truth about what happened to Princess Zelenix." Jake turned from the window. "Then ask your questions." "Sit," Kelvan said, gesturing to a chair. "I will stand," Jake replied. The investigator's mandibles clicked, a sign of irritation. "Very well. Tell me how you found the princess." Jake began his story. He kept his voice steady and emotionless, reporting facts like he would to any superior officer. 5 years ago, he was a pilot on the Earth survey ship Wanderer. They were mapping unknown star systems near the frontier, far from major trade routes. It was boring work, but it was his job. "We detected a distress signal," Jake said. "Captain Linda Hayes ordered us to investigate. We found the wreckage of a Chthoni diplomatic vessel. Most of it was destroyed. The crew was dead, but we found an emergency pod still functioning. Princess Zelenix was inside, barely alive. And you rescued her," Kelvan said. "Why?" Jake looked at the investigator like he was stupid. "Because she was alive and needed help." "What kind of question is that?" "Humans and Chthoni are not allies," Kelvan said. "You could have left her. You could have taken the pod and demanded a ransom. Why risk your ship and crew for a stranger?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Jake said simply. "Captain Hayes believed saving the princess could improve relations between our species. And because we do not leave people to die when we can help them." Kelvan made notes on a data pad. "Continue." Jake explained how they brought Zelenix aboard the Wanderer. She was injured but stable. The ship's doctor, a woman named Betty Clark, treated her wounds. Captain Hayes tried to contact Chthoni Space to arrange the princess's return. But before we could establish contact, we were attacked, Jake said. His voice grew harder, remembering. 3 pirate ships came out of nowhere. They knew the princess was alive. They were hunting for her. How did they know? Kelvan asked sharply. "I do not know," Jake said. "But they knew. They attacked immediately. Captain Hayes ordered an evacuation. She told me to take the princess and run, said it was the only way to keep her alive." Jake's jaw tightened. He remembered the chaos. Explosions tearing through the Wanderer. Captain Hayes shouting orders. The crew fighting desperately against impossible odds. He remembered grabbing Zelenix, who was still weak from her injuries, and dragging her to the shuttle bay. "I got the princess to a shuttle," Jake continued. "We launched just before the Wanderer exploded. I watched my ship die. I watched my friends die. Then I flew until we crashed on the nearest planet." "Redstone," Kelvan said, reading from his notes. "Yes. Redstone. A frontier world. No colonies. No settlements. Just rocks, sparse vegetation, and things that wanted to kill us." The investigator listened as Jake described those first terrible days. The shuttle was damaged beyond repair in the crash. They had limited supplies. The princess was still recovering from her injuries and could barely walk. The planet was harsh, with extreme temperature shifts between day and night. "I built a shelter from the shuttle wreckage," Jake said. "Started hunting for food. Found a water source. The princess was weak. She could not do much at first." "And you did not harm her?" Kelvan asked. "Did not take advantage of her vulnerable state?" Jake's eyes went cold. "No. You are a soldier," Kelvan pressed. "Trained to fight." She was helpless. "You could have done anything you wanted." "But I did not," Jake said, his voice dangerous now. "I protected her. I taught her how to survive. I kept her alive." Kelvan backed off slightly, recognizing he had pushed too far. "Tell me about Redstone. How did you survive?" Jake relaxed a fraction. He described the planet. Redstone had native animals, some dangerous. The vegetation was barely edible but could sustain them if they were careful. The weather was brutal. Storms came without warning, bringing winds that could tear apart anything not secured properly. "The first winter almost killed us," Jake said. "Temperatures dropped far below freezing. We had to dig into the ground to stay warm. The princess got sick. I thought she would die, but she did not die. Jake nursed her through the illness, sharing his body heat when she was too cold, forcing her to eat when she had no appetite. When she recovered, she was different, stronger, more determined. She learned fast, Jake said, and for the first time there was a hint of pride in his voice. I taught her to hunt, to track, to fight. She was raised in a palace, but she adapted. She became a survivor. Kelvin listened, making notes. And the pirates? You said they found you 3 times. Yes, they were persistent. The first time was 6 months after we crashed. They sent a landing party, 5 of them. They spread out searching for any sign of the princess. And what did you do? Kelvin asked. I killed them, Jake said without emotion. The princess and I set traps, ambushed them. They did not expect resistance. They thought they were hunting one injured princess and a primitive human. They were wrong. The second attack came a year later. More pirates, better prepared. Jake and Xelanix had to abandon their shelter and move to a new location. They stayed on the move for months, never settling in one place too long. The third attack was the worst. A full squad of 12 pirates with advanced weapons and tracking equipment. Jake and Xelanix barely survived. They led the pirates into a canyon and triggered a rock slide. Most of the pirates died. The survivors retreated. After that, they stopped coming, Jake said. I think they decided the princess was not worth the cost. Meanwhile, Jake worked on the communicator. It was damaged in the crash, but some parts still functioned. He spent 2 years scavenging parts from the shuttle, rebuilding circuits, testing and failing and trying again. The princess helped, Jake said. She learned human technology. She has a good mind for engineering. Together, we finally got it working. But when they activated the communicator, they discovered a problem. Any transmission they sent was intercepted or blocked. They could receive some signals, enough to know that Krithani Space thought the princess was dead. But they could not send a clear message without pirates tracking them. We realized someone was blocking communications, Jake said. Someone did not want the princess found alive. So we waited. We prepared. We strengthened our position, and we listened. Over time, they intercepted fragments of pirate communications. They learned the pirates were working for someone powerful, someone who wanted Xelanix dead and was willing to pay a fortune to make it happen. We could not trust anyone, Jake said, so we stayed hidden. We survived, and we planned. Then 2 months ago, an opportunity appeared. A human trading ship passed near Redstone. Jake managed to signal them without the pirates intercepting. The traders were suspicious, but when they realized a Krithani princess was involved, they agreed to help. They provided a small transport ship in exchange for future trade considerations. We flew here directly, Jake said. Stayed off main routes. Avoided any Krithani ships until we reached the homeworld. We figured once we were here, surrounded by the royal guard, the princess would be safe. Kelvin studied Jake for a long moment. That is an incredible story. It is the truth, Jake said, perhaps. But you understand our skepticism. A human keeps a princess alive for 5 years. A human protects her from pirates. A human brings her home and asks for nothing. This is not typical behavior. I do not care what is typical, Jake said. I did what needed to be done. And you developed no attachment to the princess? Kelvin asked. 5 years is a long time. Living in close quarters, depending on each other for survival. Did nothing happen between you? Jake's expression became unreadable. We became friends. Good friends. She is a remarkable person. Just friends? Kelvin pressed. That is between the princess and me, Jake said coldly. It has nothing to do with your investigation. Kelvin made more notes. The evidence you claim to have. Communications between the pirates and someone in the Krithani court. Where is this evidence? The princess has it, Jake said. On data crystals. We kept backups in case something happened to one of us. Convenient, Kelvin said. We only have your word that this evidence exists. Then ask the princess, Jake said. Or are you keeping us separated because you know our stories will match and you do not want to admit we are telling the truth? Kelvin's mandibles clicked in irritation. Watch your tone, human. You are a guest here, but that can change quickly. Is that a threat? Jake asked, his hand moving slightly toward where his weapon should be. The guards had taken it, but the instinct remained. It is a warning, Kelvin said. He stood up, his tall insectoid body looming over Jake. You claim to be a hero, but heroes are rare and liars are. 3 days passed in the Crystal Palace. Jake remained in the diplomatic quarters, questioned repeatedly by different investigators. They asked the same questions in different ways, looking for inconsistencies in his story. They found none because he told the truth, but truth did not seem to matter much. Jake could see the suspicion in their compound eyes. He was human, and that made him automatically guilty of something in their minds. It reminded him of the prejudices he had faced before joining the Colonial Defense Force. Some things were universal across species. On the fourth day, a new guard arrived to watch his door. This one was young, his carapace still bright green instead of the darker colors of older Crithani. He carried his weapon awkwardly, like someone still getting used to military duty. Jake studied him through the door's window, young, inexperienced, nervous. This guard was different from the others. When the guard brought his evening meal, Jake spoke to him. "What is your name?" The guard looked surprised that Jake would ask. "Tokmar," he said after a moment. "How long have you been in the Royal Guard, Tokmar?" 3 months, Tokmar admitted. He hesitated, then added, "They assigned me here because I am new. No one else wants to guard a human. Why not?" Jake asked, though he knew the answer. "They say humans are dangerous, unpredictable, violent." Tokmar paused. "Are you?" Jake smiled without humor. "Only when necessary. Would you like to come in? This door gets heavy." Tokmar looked both ways down the corridor, then stepped inside. He kept his weapon ready, but not pointed at Jake. Smart kid, Jake thought. "You speak our language well," Tokmar said. "The princess taught me. She is a good teacher." Jake gestured to a table. "Do you play cards?" "Cards?" Jake pulled a worn deck from his pocket. The guards had searched him thoroughly, but left him the cards, deciding they were harmless. They did not understand that anything could be a weapon if you used it right. "It is a human game," Jake explained. "I will teach you." And so began an unlikely friendship. Tokmar visited during his guard shifts, and Jake taught him card games. They played for small stakes, using pebbles Jake had collected. Tokmar was terrible at first, but learned quickly. During the games, they talked. Jake told stories about Earth, about oceans that covered most of the planet, about cities with millions of humans living together, about the stars Earth's people were now exploring. Tokmar told Jake about Crithani culture, about the hive structures that made up their society, about the long history of the Empire, about the strict rules that governed behavior and honor. "Is it true that you saved the princess's life many times?" Tokmar asked one evening. "Yes," Jake said simply. "Why?" "You could have let her die. You could have traded her for wealth." Jake looked at the young guard. "Have you ever had someone depend on you completely? Someone whose life was in your hands?" Tokmar thought about it. "My younger brother. When he was sick last year, I stayed with him every day until he recovered. Did you think about abandoning him? About what you could gain by letting him die?" Tokmar looked horrified. "Of course not. He is my brother." "Exactly," Jake said. "When you are responsible for someone, when their life is in your hands, you protect them. Not because of what you can gain, because it is right." Tokmar was quiet for a long time. "The other guards say you must want something. That humans always want something." "I want the princess to be safe," Jake said. "I want to know she is home and protected. That is all." "But 5 years," Tokmar said. 5 years you protected her. That is a long time to ask for nothing." Jake shrugged. "Time does not change what is right." These conversations did more than pass the time. Word spread through the palace about the human who played cards with his guard. About the human who spoke of honor and duty in ways that sounded Crithani. About the human who seemed genuinely unconcerned with wealth or power. It confused the nobles. It was easier to believe Jake was a criminal or a spy. But criminals and spies did not usually teach card games to their guards or speak philosophically about protecting others. Meanwhile, Princess Zelanix worked tirelessly to convince her mother of Jake's worth. She arranged for him to address the royal court directly. It was an unusual request, but the queen agreed. She wanted to see this human speak for himself. The court assembled in the grand throne room. Hundreds of Crithani nobles filled the space, their bodies creating a wall of chittering, clicking sounds. Jake was brought in by 6 guards, surrounded but not restrained. He wore his old uniform, which someone had cleaned for the occasion. He walked through the crowd without fear. His eyes scanned the room constantly, noting exits, potential threats, positions of advantage, old habits from his military training. The nobles noticed and found it disturbing. This human evaluated the throne room like a battlefield. Queen Veshkara sat on her throne, tall and imposing. Princess Zelanik stood beside her mother, looking worried. She had fought for this opportunity, but she knew how the court felt about humans. "Lieutenant Jake Morrison," the Queen said formally, "you have been accused of many things. You have been called a kidnapper, a spy, and a manipulator. What do you say to these accusations?" Jake looked directly at the Queen. "I say they are wrong. I saved your daughter's life. I protected her for 5 years. I brought her home. Those are facts. Everything else is fear and prejudice." The court erupted in angry sounds. How dare this human speak so bluntly? How dare he accuse them of prejudice? But the Queen raised one hand and silence fell. "Explain what happened on Redstone," the Queen commanded. "Tell us how you survived." So Jake told them. He described building shelter from shuttle wreckage, teaching Zelanics to hunt and fish, fighting off predators that attacked their camp, surviving storms that would have killed them if they had not prepared properly. He talked about the first winter when temperatures dropped so low that their water froze solid, about digging into the ground to create an insulated shelter, about burning every spare piece of material they had to stay warm. "The princess got sick," Jake said. "Fever, delirium. She could not keep food down. For 3 days I thought she would die." "What did you do?" the Queen asked quietly. "Everything I could," Jake said. "Kept her warm, forced her to drink water, talked to her so she would not give up. On the 3rd night her fever broke. She survived." He described teaching Zelanics to shoot the weapons they had salvaged. She was clumsy at first, her Krithani physiology making human weapons difficult to use. But she practiced every day until she became accurate. He talked about the pirates, about setting traps and fighting ambushes, about the constant fear of being found and killed, about learning to think like prey while acting like predators. "We built a life there," Jake said. "It was hard. It was dangerous. But we survived together. The princess learned to hunt, to fight, to fix equipment. She became strong." General Tixnur, the military commander who had been quietly listening, spoke up. "You taught a princess to be a soldier." "I taught her to survive," Jake corrected. "Soldiers follow orders. Survivors make their own choices." Tixnor made an approving sound. "And the communicator? How did you rebuild it?" Jake described the technical work. It was slow and frustrating. Many attempts failed. Components burned out. Connections broke. But they kept trying, learning from each failure. "The princess has a gift for engineering," Jake said. "She understood the technology faster than I did. We worked on it together. 2 years of work. When it finally powered up, we both cried." This admission surprised the court. "Humans cried?" And they admitted it openly. "But you could not contact us," the Queen said. "No, every transmission was blocked or intercepted. We realized someone did not want the princess found, so we waited and listened. We gathered evidence. Chancellor Kexval, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. Evidence you claim to have but have not shown us." "The princess has it," Jake said, looking at Zelanics. "Data crystals containing pirate communications. Encrypted channels using Krithani royal codes. Someone in this court hired those pirates." The chamber erupted in chaos. Nobles shouting. Guards moving forward. The Queen's voice cutting through the noise demanding order. "This is a serious accusation," Kexval said coldly. "Do you have proof?" "Ask the princess," Jake said. She kept the evidence safe. All eyes turned to Zelanics. She nodded. "It is true. We have encrypted communications linking the pirates to someone using royal access codes. I did not reveal this earlier because I did not know who to trust." "Then present this evidence," Kexval demanded. "Let us see these supposed communications." "After Lieutenant Morrison is granted protection," Zelanic said firmly, "I will not risk his life by exposing a conspiracy when he has no legal standing to defend himself." "The human needs no protection," Kexval said. "He is a guest of the Empire." "A guest who has been treated like a prisoner," Zelanic countered. "A guest whose weapons were taken and whose movements are restricted. Grant him diplomatic immunity first, then we will share the evidence." The Queen considered this. She looked at Jake, who stood calmly despite being surrounded by beings who could easily kill him. She looked at her daughter, who was willing to protect this human even against her own court. "What strikes me," the Queen said slowly, "is how you speak of survival, Lieutenant Morrison. You describe events that would be considered heroic in our culture, with the tone of someone discussing routine work. That night, Princess Zelanix could not sleep. She stood in her chambers looking out at the same city Jake was watching from his window. They were so close but might as well have been on different planets. The palace walls separated them as effectively as the void of space. She thought about the court session, about how Jake had stood there surrounded and outnumbered, speaking truth to power without fear. About how the nobles looked at him like he was something dangerous and unpredictable. They did not understand him. They did not want to understand him, but Zelanix understood. She had watched Jake for 5 years, had seen him make impossible decisions, had seen him keep going when giving up would have been easier, had seen him put her safety above his own comfort, his own needs, his own life, and she had fallen in love with him. Not suddenly, not dramatically, slowly over years of shared struggle and quiet moments. It happened in 100 small ways. The way he checked on her every morning to make sure she was well. The way he taught her with patience she did not deserve. The way he never made her feel weak or helpless even when she was both. Now the court wanted to separate them, to exile him, to pretend those 5 years never happened. And Zelanix would not allow it. She made a decision. It was dangerous and would anger her mother. But some things mattered more than safety or politics. She left her chambers quietly. The royal quarters had guards, but Zelanix knew their patrol routes. She had learned stealth from Jake. She slipped through the corridors like a shadow, avoiding detection. She needed help, someone she could trust, someone who would not immediately report to the Queen or Chancellor. General Tixner. He had spoken approvingly of Jake during the court session. He understood warriors. He valued competence over species prejudice. He might listen. She found him in his office, reviewing tactical reports. He looked up in surprise when she entered. "Princess," he said, standing. "It is late. Does the Queen know you are here?" "No," Zelanix said. "And I need it to stay that way." "I need your help, General." Tixner gestured for her to sit. "Speak freely." Zelanix pulled out a small data crystal from a hidden pocket. "This contains evidence of conspiracy. During our time on Redstone, Jake and I intercepted pirate communications. We spent months decrypting them. What we found was proof that the attack on my ship was not random." She placed the crystal on the general's desk. Someone in the Crithani court hired those pirates. Someone with access to royal encryption codes. Someone who wanted me dead. Tixner picked up the crystal carefully. "That is a serious accusation. I know. That is why I said nothing until now. I did not know who to trust. But I have watched the court. I have seen who pushes hardest to discredit Jake. Who insists he must be lying. Who wants him exiled quickly before questions can be asked." "The Chancellor," Tixner said quietly. "Yes, Chancellor Kexvel. I was negotiating a trade agreement with the Vextar species when my ship was attacked. That agreement would have reduced Kexvel's influence and profit significantly. He had motive." Tixner inserted the crystal into his computer. Files appeared. Encrypted communications, financial transactions, orders given through secret channels. His compound eyes widened as he read. "By the ancestors," he breathed. "This is damning. If verified, Kexvel committed treason. Can you verify it?" Zelanix asked. "I have intelligence officers I trust completely. Officers who are loyal to the Empire, not to any politician. Give me time to analyze this thoroughly." He looked at the princess. "But why come to me now? Why not present this to your mother?" "Because Kexvel has spies everywhere. If we reveal this openly, he will flee or destroy evidence. We need to move carefully, and we need to protect Jake." "The human," Tixner said thoughtfully. "You care deeply for him?" Zelanix met his eyes without shame. "Yes. He is the best person I have ever known, and I will not let this court destroy him because he had the courage to do what was right." Tixner nodded slowly. "I will investigate this. But Princess, if Kexvel learns you are working against him, you will be in danger, and so will Lieutenant Morrison." "I know," Zelanix said. "That is why I need to get Jake out of the palace. Somewhere safe until you can act." "You want to help him escape," Tixner said. It was not a question. "Yes." The general was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision. "I will give you 4 hours before I report the escape to the Queen. That should give you enough time to reach the lower city. There are humans there. Traders and merchants. They can hide you both." "Thank you, General," Zelanix said. "Do not thank me yet, Princess. If this goes wrong, we will all face consequences. But I am a soldier first, and I will not stand by while treachery goes unpunished." Zelanix left the general's office and headed for the diplomatic quarters. She needed one more ally, someone young and idealistic enough to help without asking too many questions. Takmar was on guard duty outside Jake's door. He snapped to attention when he saw the princess approach. "Your Highness," he said nervously, "you should not be here." "I need your help, Takmar," Zelanix said quietly. "And I need you to trust me." The young guard looked torn. "I am supposed to report any unusual activity." "I know, but Jake Morrison saved my life many times. Now I need to save his. Will you help me?" Takmar remembered his conversations with Jake, remembered the human teaching him card games and talking about honor. Remembered thinking that maybe humans were not so different from Krithani after all. He made his choice. "What do you need me to do?" "Open the door, then look the other way for 10 minutes. Takmar hesitated only a moment. Then he unlocked the door. 10 minutes. Then I must sound the alarm or I will be executed for dereliction of duty." "Thank you," Zelanix said. She slipped inside. Jake was awake, standing by the window as always. He turned when she entered, surprise and relief crossing his face. "Zella," he said. It was the first time they had been alone since arriving at the palace. "We need to leave," she said quickly. "Now. I have evidence that proves the attack on my ship was ordered by someone in the court. But if we reveal it now, they will destroy the proof and kill us both." Jake did not argue or ask unnecessary questions. He simply nodded. "What is the plan?" "We go to the lower city, find the human traders there, hide until General Tixnor can verify the evidence and make arrests." "And the guard outside?" Jake asked. "He is helping us." "We have 10 minutes. Jake grabbed his few possessions. Someone had returned his weapon, perhaps thinking a guest should not be completely defenseless. He checked it quickly, professionally, then holstered it. "Lead the way," he said. They moved quickly through the palace. Zelanix knew routes that avoided the main patrol paths. Jake followed silently, trusting her knowledge of her own home. When they encountered guards, Zelanix used her authority to send them on errands or different directions, but their luck did not last forever. As they reached the lower levels of the palace, an alarm sounded. Sharp, piercing, unmistakable. "They know," Jake said. "Run," Zelanix replied. They ran through crystal corridors that twisted and turned. Behind them, they heard the clicking sounds of Krithani guards pursuing. Orders were shouted. More alarms joined the first. Jake and Zelanix burst through a service exit into the lower city. The change was dramatic. Where the palace was all crystal and elegance, the lower city was metal and function. This was where workers lived, where traders operated, where life was harder and less beautiful but more real. They disappeared into the crowds, Krithani civilians going about their business, a few humans among them, members of trading delegations. Jake pulled up his collar and kept his head down. Zelanix wrapped herself in a cloak hiding her distinctive royal markings. "We need to find the human quarter," Jake said. "Any idea where that is?" "East sector," Zelanix replied. "Near the commercial docks." They moved through unfamiliar streets. The city was huge and pursuit was close behind. Jake's military training took over. He chose routes that offered cover, stayed away from dead ends, kept moving in patterns that would be hard to predict. They ducked into an alley as a patrol flew overhead, waited in shadows while guards searched nearby buildings. Jake's hand stayed on his weapon, ready but hoping he would not need to use it. "This way," Zelanix whispered, pointing to a narrow passage between buildings. They squeezed through and emerged into a different district. Here the signs were written in multiple languages, including Human Standard. Shops sold goods from different worlds, and there finally they saw humans. A trading office with Earth colonial symbols on the door. Jake approached carefully, knocked in a specific pattern. Military recognition code. Either the person inside would understand or they would not. Either way, he would know if help was available. The door opened. A human woman stood there, middle-aged with gray in her hair and a blaster on her hip. She looked at Jake, took in his uniform and the Krithani princess beside him, and made a quick decision. "Get inside," she said. Now they entered. The woman locked the door behind them and activated security shutters. "I am Katie Walsh," she said, "head of security for the Crane Trading Company. And you are the missing pilot and the supposedly dead princess who have the entire Krithani palace in an uproar. You heard already?" Jake asked. "News travels fast when a human is accused of kidnapping a princess," Katie said dryly. "Lucky for you, I know bulls when I hear it." "Paul?" she called out. General Tixnor worked through the night. His most trusted intelligence officers analyzed the data Crystal Princess Zelonix had given him. They traced the encrypted communications. They followed the money trails. They cross-referenced access codes. By morning, they had irrefutable proof. Chancellor Kexavol had hired the pirates, had ordered the assassination, had covered his tracks for 5 years. The evidence was solid enough to bring before the Queen. But when Tixnor went to present his findings, he discovered chaos. The princess and the human had escaped. The palace was in lockdown, and Chancellor Kexavol was demanding immediate action. The human has kidnapped the princess. Kexavol shouted in the throne room. I warned you he was dangerous. Now he has taken her, probably to ransom her to our enemies. That makes no sense, Tixnor said calmly. If he wanted to ransom her, he would not have brought her here in the first place. Perhaps his plan changed when he realized we would not simply reward him, Kexavol argued. Humans are devious creatures. They cannot be trusted. Queen Veshkara sat on her throne, 4 arms gripping the armrests tightly. Her daughter was gone. Again. Find them, she commanded. Bring them both back alive. I will hear the truth directly. My queen, Tixnor said. Before we continue this discussion, there is something you must see. He presented the data crystal and its contents. The queen watched as the evidence unfolded. Communications between Kexavol and the pirate leader. Financial transfers from accounts Kexavol controlled. Orders to destroy the princess's ship and leave no survivors. The throne room fell silent. Every noble present saw the evidence, saw the proof of treason at the highest levels of the court. Kexavol saw it too, saw his carefully constructed lies falling apart. He made a desperate decision. That evidence is fabricated, he shouted. The human and the princess created it to discredit me. It is an obvious trick. The encryption codes are genuine, Tixnor said. My officers have verified them. Only someone with royal access could have sent those communications. And the financial records come from the royal treasury itself. Then someone else used my access codes. Kexavol insisted. I am being framed. The queen stood up. Her voice was cold and terrible. Kexavol, you are accused of treason, of attempting to murder my daughter, of conspiracy with pirates. What do you say to these charges? Kexavol knew he was finished. But Crithani law gave him one option, one ancient right that might save his life. I invoke my right to trial of strength, he said formally. The court gasped. Trial of strength was ancient law. When accusations were serious and evidence disputed, the accused could demand combat. A champion fighting for the accused versus a champion fighting for the accuser. The winner proved the righteousness of their cause. It was barbaric, outdated, but it was law. You dare, the queen said. You would use our sacred traditions to escape justice? I have the right, Kexavol said. Unless you deny me the law itself. The queen could not deny him. To do so would undermine the entire legal system. Very well. You may name your champion. Kexavol had planned for this possibility. I named Draxon, warrior of the 7th caste. A massive Crithani warrior stepped forward from the crowd. He was enormous, nearly twice the height of a normal Crithani. His carapace was black and scarred from countless battles. His forearms each held a different weapon. He was legendary in the military. Undefeated in combat, the message was clear. Kexavol had chosen a champion that no one could beat. Any champion the princess chose would die. The trial would be over before it began. The accuser must name her champion, Kexavol said smugly. But I do not see Princess Zelonix here to do so. The throne room doors opened. Princess Zelonix walked in, flanked by Katie Walsh and Paul Crane. Behind them, guarded but not restrained, walked Jake Morrison. The court erupted in shocked sounds. How had they gotten back into the palace? How had they passed the guards? General Tixnor gave us safe passage, Zelonix announced. I am here to formally accuse Chancellor Kexavol of treason and attempted murder. And I am here to name my champion. Princess, think carefully, the queen said. Draxon has never been defeated. Whoever you choose will die. Zelonix looked directly at her mother. I named Jake Morrison as my champion. The throne room fell absolutely silent. Then chaos exploded. A human, fighting in a sacred Crithani trial? Impossible. Blasphemous. Against every tradition. But Zelonix stood firm. The law says an accuser may name any champion willing to fight for their cause. Jake Morrison has fought for me for 5 years. He will fight for me now. The Queen looked at the human. Lieutenant Morrison, do you accept this burden? You will face Draxon in combat. The fight is to submission or death. Do you understand what this means? Jake stepped forward. His voice was steady. I understand. And I accept. This is madness, HFY said, but he was smiling. A human against Draxon? The trial was already won. The human would die, and with no champion to prove the charges, HFY would be free. The Queen consulted ancient texts. Her advisors searched for any provision forbidding an alien champion. They found none. The law was clear. Any willing champion could fight. The trial will proceed, the Queen announced. 3 days from now in the ancient arena. Prepare yourselves. Jake was taken to quarters where he could train. Katie Walsh insisted on helping. She had military combat training and knew human fighting techniques. You are insane, she told Jake as they sparred. That thing is twice your size and has 4 arms. How are you supposed to win? By not fighting fair, Jake said, dodging her strike and countering. Draxon is trained in Crithani combat. Honorable techniques, predictable patterns. I do not fight like that. You fight dirty, Katie said approvingly. I fight to win, Jake corrected. There is a difference. Paul Crane brought weapons. He had spent years trading in Crithani space and knew where to find equipment that humans could actually use. Shorter blades, lighter armor. Weapons designed for 2 arms instead of 4. General Tixnor visited breaking protocol. I should not be here, he said. But I wanted you to know. Draxon is strong and skilled. But he is also arrogant. He will expect you to fight like a Crithani warrior. Use that against him. I plan to, Jake said. Tixnor hesitated. Why are you doing this? You could refuse. You could leave Crithani space and never return. Instead, you risk your life for a princess who has already cost you 5 years. Jake looked at the general. Because she is worth fighting for. And because someone needs to stand up to people like HFY. If I do not, who will? The general nodded slowly. You are a strange human, Lieutenant Morrison. But I begin to understand why the princess chose you. On the night before the trial, Zelonix came to see Jake. The guards allowed her in without question. Everyone knew this might be the last time they spoke. You do not have to do this, she said quietly. We could run, leave Crithani space, start over somewhere else, and let HFY win. Jake shook his head. No, justice matters. Truth matters. If I run now, everything we survived on Redstone means nothing. I am afraid, Zelonix admitted. Afraid I will watch you die tomorrow. Jake took her hands in his. They were so different, human and Crithani. But they fit together perfectly. I have survived pirates, predators, impossible winters. A giant warrior with 4 arms is just another challenge. Jake, this is not a joke. I know, he said seriously. But I am not going to die tomorrow. I have too much to live for. He looked into her compound eyes. I love you, Zella. I have for years. And I am not going to die before I get to spend a real life with you. Not on some hostile planet here in peace together. Zelonix felt her hearts beat faster. I love you too. I have since the second winter on Redstone when you gave me your only blanket because I was cold. That was stupid, Jake said. I nearly froze. That was kind, Zelonix corrected. And that was when I knew. They held each other through the night, speaking little, just being together. When dawn came, they were ready. The ancient arena was built from dark stone, worn smooth by centuries of combat. Thousands of Crithani filled the seats come to witness history, a human fighting in a trial of strength. Some came to see justice. Others came to see a human die. The Queen sat in the royal box with her advisors. General Tixnor stood nearby, his face unreadable. HFY sat in the accused section, confident and smiling. Draxon entered first. The crowd roared. He was a legend, and he looked it. Massive, powerful, carrying 4 weapons, 1 in each hand. His black carapace gleamed in the sunlight. He raised his arms, and the crowd cheered louder. Then Jake Morrison entered. He looked impossibly small by comparison. Human. Fragile. He wore light armor that Paul Crane had found. He carried a single shortened blade. He did not wave to the crowd or make grand gestures. He simply walked to the center of the arena and waited. The difference was stark. Giant versus human. Experienced warrior versus young soldier. 4 arms versus 2. It looked like an execution waiting to happen. The Queen stood. Let the trial of strength begin. Combat continues until one fighter yields or dies. May truth and justice prevail. Draxon attacked immediately. He was fast despite his size, closing the distance in seconds. His forearms swung weapons in a complex pattern designed to overwhelm any defense. Jake dodged. He did not try to block. Blocking against forearms was suicide. He simply was not there when the attacks arrived. He moved. Vishkara. The entire Krithani court watched and waited. What would the human ask for? Wealth, power? A planet of his own? I want two things, Jake said, his voice carrying across the silent arena. First, formal diplomatic recognition of humanity as equals by the Krithani Empire, not as primitives or juniors. As equals, the court buzzed with shocked sounds. Equals, humans, the species that had barely discovered space travel? Second, Jake continued, I want protection for Princess Zelonix to make her own choices about her future. No forced marriages. No political arrangements. Her life should be her own, that was it. No wealth, no titles. Just recognition for his people and freedom for Zelonix. The queen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Both shall be granted. As of this moment, humanity is recognized as an equal partner in the Krithani Empire. And my daughter's future is her own to choose. She gestured to Paul Crane, who stood stunned among the crowd. You human merchant. Come forward. Paul climbed down to the arena floor looking terrified. Your Majesty? You represent human trading interests, yes? I do, Your Majesty. The Crane Trading Company. Then you will represent humanity in formal negotiations. We will establish a treaty, trade agreements, military cooperation, everything that comes with recognizing a species as equals. The Queen's mandibles clicked in something that might have been amusement. I hope you are prepared for this responsibility. Paul looked like he might faint. His small trading mission had just become the foundation of humanity's first major galactic alliance. Yes, Your Majesty. I am honored. Katie Walsh stood beside him, grinning. She whispered, You are going to be the richest human in the galaxy. I am going to need so much more staff, Paul whispered back. The Queen turned her attention back to Jake. Is there nothing you want for yourself? Lieutenant Morrison? No reward. Jake looked at Princess Zelonix, who stood at the edge of the arena. Their eyes met. A silent conversation passed between them. There is one more thing, Jake said, but it is not something you can grant. Only the princess can. Zelonix walked to the center of the arena. She moved slowly, formally aware that everyone was watching. When she reached Jake, she spoke loudly enough for the crowd to hear. Jake Morrison saved my life, protected me for 5 years, fought for me when no one else would. He has proven his worth beyond any measure. She turned to face her mother. I choose him as my life mate. The court exploded in noise, shock, outrage, disbelief. A princess choosing a human? A member of a primitive species? This was too much. This went too far, but Queen Vishkara raised one hand and silence fell. She looked at her daughter. Really looked at her. Saw someone strong and capable. Saw someone who had survived impossible odds and emerged stronger. Saw someone who knew her own mind and would not be swayed by tradition or politics. By law, the Queen said slowly, a princess may choose any worthy individual who has proven themselves in service to the Empire. Lieutenant Morrison has certainly proven himself. The law is clear. I cannot refuse this choice. But Mother, one advisor began. The law is clear, the Queen repeated firmly. My daughter has made her choice, a choice she has earned the right to make. She addressed the crowd. 5 years ago, I lost my daughter to pirates. I mourned her. I accepted that she was gone forever. Then a human brought her back. A human who could have demanded ransom or used her for political gain. Instead, he simply protected her. He taught her to survive. He kept her alive when any other being would have given up or sold her out. The Queen's voice grew stronger. Today, that same human won a trial of strength using methods we would never consider. Tactics we would call dishonorable. But he won. And in winning, he showed us something important. Humans survive because they adapt. Because they do what needs to be done without worrying about tradition or honor or how things should be. They focus on results. She looked at Jake directly. This is what humanity brings to the galaxy. Determination, adaptability, the refusal to give up no matter the odds. These are qualities the older races have forgotten. Qualities we desperately need. General Tixnor stepped forward. The Queen speaks truth. I have studied human military tactics. I have spoken with Lieutenant Morrison. Humans are not primitive. They are simply different, and sometimes different is exactly what we need. Other voices joined in, not everyone, but enough. Nobles who saw the value in allying with a species that had proven themselves capable, military officers who recognized human fighting spirit, younger Crithani who were less bound by tradition. The queen made her decision. In 3 days we will hold a formal ceremony. Princess Zelonix will be joined with Jake Morrison. The wedding will blend Crithani and human traditions. It will symbolize the new alliance between our peoples. She looked at the crowd. Any who object may leave now. But understand this. My daughter has chosen and I support her choice. This is the beginning of a new era. Some nobles left. Traditionalists who could not accept a human in the royal family. But most stayed. Curious, interested, ready to see what would happen next. The next 3 days were chaos. Paul Crane worked frantically with Crithani officials to draft treaty terms. Katie Walsh coordinated security, making sure no one tried to harm Jake or the princess before the ceremony. General Tixnor began planning joint military exercises between human and Crithani forces, and Jake and Zelonix finally had time to simply be together. No pirates hunting them, no harsh planet trying to kill them, no politics separating them, just the two of them planning a future. Are you sure about this? Jake asked on the night before the ceremony. Once we are married, you are stuck with me. No going back. Zelonix clicked her mandibles in amusement. I have been stuck with you for 5 years. I think I can manage a few more. A few more? Jake pretended to be offended. I was hoping for at least a decade. We will see, Zelonix said, her compound eyes glowing with warmth. You might get bored of palace life. You are used to action and danger. I fought a giant warrior with 4 arms 3 days ago, Jake pointed out. I think I have had enough action for a while. They were quiet for a moment. Then Zelonix said softly, thank you. For everything. For saving me. For teaching me. For never giving up. You saved me too, Jake said. Before Redstone, I was just a pilot going through the motions. Then I met you and suddenly I had a purpose. Someone to protect. Someone worth fighting for. You gave me that. We saved each other, Zelonix said. And we will continue to do so. That is what partners do. The wedding ceremony was unlike anything ever seen in Crithani space. It blended human and alien traditions in ways no one expected. Human music played alongside Crithani ceremonial songs. Earth flowers decorated the crystal halls. Jake wore a formal uniform while Zelonix wore traditional royal garments. General Tixnor stood as Jake's honor guard, a position usually reserved for family. Katie Walsh and Paul Crane represented Earth's diplomatic presence. Tokmar, the young guard who had befriended Jake, wore his dress uniform with pride. Queen Veshikara presided over the ceremony. She spoke about courage and adaptation, about how love could cross species and cultures, about how the strongest bonds were forged in the hardest circumstances. When she asked if anyone objected to the union, no one spoke. The traditionalists had already left. Those who remained accepted this new reality. Jake and Zelonix spoke their vows. Human words and Crithani promises mixed together. They pledged to stand beside each other through any challenge, to protect and support each other, to face the future as partners. When the ceremony ended, the crowd cheered. It was not a quiet, polite acknowledgement. It was genuine celebration. Something new was beginning. Something important. The reception that followed was enormous. Crithani nobles mixed with human traders. Military officers from both species discussed tactics and strategy. Scientists shared knowledge. Merchants negotiated deals. Draxon, the warrior Jake had defeated, approached on newly repaired legs. Lieutenant Morrison, he said formally, I wanted to speak with you. Jake tensed slightly, unsure what to expect. You fought well, Draxon continued. You used tactics I did not expect. You showed mercy when you could have shown cruelty. These are the marks of a true warrior. I would be honored to train with you sometime. Jake relaxed. I would like that. You are a formidable opponent. I learned a lot fighting you. As did I, Draxon said. He made a gesture of respect and moved on. Queen Veshikara watched her daughter and new son-in-law. She saw how they moved together, anticipating each other's actions, how they communicated with glances and subtle gestures, how 5 years of survival had created a bond stronger than any formal ceremony could. General Tixnor approached the queen. Your Majesty, The humans have proposed joint patrol missions along the frontier. They say their ships are fast and good for scouting. Our ships have better weapons and shields. Together we could significantly improve security. Approve it, the Queen said. This alliance must be more than words. We need to work together in practice. There is something else, Tixner said. The Earth Colonial Defense Force has requested Lieutenant Morrison's records. They think he is dead. When they learn he is alive and married to a princess, they will have questions. Then we will answer them, the Queen said. Honestly, we will tell them,